And that's it. Just like that, he's gone. He is not here anymore. And there are a bunch of things that you can say about this whole situation. I will try my best to keep my thoughts organized in this video. But as the title suggests, the Golden State Warriors completely mishandled this entire situation. I made a video back in, I believe, November, somewhere around there, where I said that I would be shocked if the Golden State Warriors did not figure out some sort of contract extension or some sort of new deal for Klay Thompson before the offseason. And as the season went on, it was becoming more and more apparent that it wasn't actually going to happen, which was pretty concerning considering the fact that throughout the year, it was pretty apparent that they weren't going to be doing anything of value anyway. And so me personally, I thought it would have been in their best interest to just game plan for next season, just make sure that he is locked down and guaranteed to be on the team. And I feel like the trade deadline was a pretty big turning point for this whole situation. I just rewatched a video that I made right after the trade deadline in which the Golden State Warriors didn't do anything. Their only move was trading Corey Joseph to the Indiana Pacers, and that was really it. After them talking the month leading up to the trade deadline about how everybody was going to be on the table except for Stephen Curry, how they were potentially looking to move off of a bunch of contracts, Chris Paul not being moved at the trade deadline, or at least not even really being attempted to be moved at the trade deadline, was really, it said a lot about their actual mindset about the roster going forward and their thoughts that they would make public pretty much throughout the rest of the season, that we still think that this roster can do something special come playoff time, things like that, even though literally everybody could see that this was going nowhere, given that they were the 10 seed and actually out of the play-in when the trade deadline actually passed. And I understand that there needs to be a team that is willing to take these contracts, but it didn't even really seem like they were trying to make moves. They did try to make the Alex Caruso trade, of which Chicago was asking for way too much at the time. The fact that they were in that situation in terms of not really looking like they were going to be in a position to even compete in a playoff series, let alone contend for a championship, and they still believed that this roster was the best way to go. There should have been a point where, like, now seeing how this whole situation has transpired, it's really surprising that there wasn't a point where they were just trying to do anything to get off of some of these contracts that they had. Andrew Wiggins, possibly. Chris Paul definitely should have been traded at the deadline. Is not a move for the current season, it's a move for next season and the off season, because now you are no longer in the second apron and you have way more flexibility and freedom to do whatever you need to do with this roster, and you don't need to see or wait so long to figure out what you need to do because you are second apron and you can't do anything. This whole Klay Thompson, Paul George contract situation, trade situation, whatever you want to call it, would have been handled so much differently if they had gotten off of Chris Paul's contract, because now not only are you losing Klay Thompson, a franchise legend who in every single reality should have been retiring on the team, you are now potentially losing Chris Paul for nothing. So as I'm recording this, we found out Chris Paul has been waived by the Golden State Warriors. They extended his deadline until June 30th. It was originally June 28th, and they have now decided that it would be in their best interest to just lose him in free agency to nothing. So that is definitely interesting. That's definitely a decision. So even more news that I'm literally haven't even finished editing the audio for this video yet, and two more things came out. The Chris Paul situation with him being waived earlier was the first thing. Secondly, Chris Haynes just reported that the Chicago Bulls called the Golden State Warriors offering Zach LaVine for Andrew Wiggins and or Chris Paul, and the Golden State Warriors rejected any offer that they tried to give and sent Chris Paul into free agency. I have no idea. There's nothing that you can actually say to even justify what I just heard. Like, it's so insane to me. Not only are you losing Klay Thompson, provided it is now reported that he is probably going to be involved in a sign-in trade, so you're going to get something in return for him, but not to the level of getting the second star that you needed. When that opportunity came up for you to get a second star in Zach LaVine, LaVine. You would rather now lose Chris Paul for nothing rather than trading away Andrew Wiggins or CP3, or possibly both, which I feel like that would make more sense from a contract perspective, because I believe that is a smaller discrepancy if you send both of them rather than just one, especially if the one is only Andrew Wiggins. But now you are sending Steph Curry off to the Olympics, and he is going to come back with possibly a worse roster than last season, a team that didn't make the playoffs. Nothing that happened within the last hour just made any sense to me. And I'm not actually sure what they're gonna do now after all of this has happened, because now you have to consider potential player relations might be shot because they've seen now how you handled the Klay Thompson contract situation, someone who is extremely valuable to your franchise over the last decade. Players might see that and go, ooh, I mean, if that's how they treat Klay or that's how they handle that situation, I don't know about that. Like, you just completely cooked yourself for what? I don't know. That's it from post-recording Double D. Now back to me from an hour ago, before we knew all of this, and I still was only somewhat pissed off. I know that I'm gonna see some idiots in the fan base hating on Klay for not taking a pay cut when, as I said before, that's really not even what this whole situation is about. It's not even really about the money anymore. It's how that situation was handled. But will always be a Warrior legend. Nobody can take that away from him. 4 championships in 8 years, coming back from 2 of the toughest injuries that any athlete can come back from, and still being the player that he was, especially in 2023 when Steph went down, and at some points in 2024. Obviously fell off a little bit, but still an extremely valuable piece given the amount of attention that he draws on offense, and obviously his shooting ability, which those two things directly go hand in hand. But it is definitely going to be very strange to see him in a different uniform, and I am not prepared at all for that next season. But in terms of what the Warriors can do now, Paul George obviously off the table, Brandon Ingram's still available, but it really doesn't make sense for the Warriors from just a fit perspective, as BI operates mainly in the mid-range, which is something that is not really going to work with the Warriors offense. All that being said, I think this is legitimately the end. Like, there isn't really much that they can really do at this point other than that to get better. Obviously, if another deal comes along somewhat down the line, we can have a conversation about that, but you have to consider, bro, Steph is 36, turning 37 years old next season. While he is still putting up the numbers that he is getting old. Given how he looked in the second half of the season, there's no telling what he's going to look like next year. I feel like part of the reason why he looked worse towards the back half of the season was because he was having to carry so much of the offensive load, but only time will tell with that. But yeah, I honestly think this might be it. As I said, there really isn't that much that they can do at this point. You might as well just have Steph, Draymond play their contracts out and then figure out what to do from there, if they still want to play or if they decide to hang it up. And I mean, that sounds kind of depressing, but I mean, if you're the Warriors, you got to accept reality at some point. A lot of teams in the Western Conference are getting better. Wemby is gonna arrive within the next 2 years. He's gonna, in all likelihood, have another star player next to him, and so it's gonna be the Spurs conference for God knows how long. The Minnesota Timberwolves are still existing. The Denver Nuggets are still there. The Dallas Mavericks still exist, and there really isn't that much that I feel like they can do to be on the level of those teams consistently. So again, I do feel like this might be it, and it kind of all started again with the Warriors front office's mismanagement of Klay Thompson's contract, which I'm sure that after he retires, we will look at that and go, man, what could have been? It very well could be one of those situations like Tony Parker going to the Hornets randomly for 1 year, which I feel like that's honestly the main comparison that I'm thinking of. A franchise legend, multiple time champion that just plays for a different team when they realistically should have retired at that franchise. That's about it for me. Thank you to Klay Thompson for everything that he has done for this organization, for me as a fan, mental health wise over the years. Really sucks to see him go. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell to be notified when I upload, comment down below what you want to see next, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.